Hi guys, this is Tatum
and Sydney.
and welcome to another episode of the Welcome Table. Today we are joined by Professor Bridget R. Cooks. Professor Bridget R. Cooks is an associate professor in the Department of African American Studies and the Department of Art History. Cooks's interests include Black visual culture, museum criticism, film, feminist theory, and post-colonial theory. We're so excited to be joined by Professor Cooks today. How are you?
I am doing okay. Yeah, how are you both?
I'm doing great.
Doing well.
As you mentioned before, love the hair.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, trying to keep it lively during COVID.
Of course. So we're gonna do our little show and tell, right? And this week I'm gonna go first. So I brought, let's try to put it close to the camera. So it's a Lord of the Rings, a little candle, Lord of the Rings. I know, I just have to say, Lord of the Rings is the best series next to Harry Potter, in my opinion. I love it so much. I've been reading the book since I've been literally 8. My mom's a huge fan. Everybody in my family is a huge fan. I just love Lord of the Rings. So I just bought this little candle because it's reminiscent of my love for the series. So
Yes,
super cute.
that is awesome.
Thank you.
I will show you my my Wonder Woman Pez dispenser.
Love that.
Oh, okay.
I have a lot of Wonder Woman stuff because I just like the spirit of being a Wonder Woman, and I think that I am. But also from the series on TV with Linda Carter, that was something I grew up with. So that was a series that I really liked. But I have a lot of Wonder Woman stuff that just kind of keeps me inspired. So yes, it's all about fantasy.
Oh, nice. How did you feel about like the newer movies?
Oh, that's a good question.
You know, I saw one and I thought it was fine. I mean, I think I have nostalgia for the original series because that's what I'm familiar with. But yeah, I love seeing so many strong, powerful women in a narrative that really let them be the protagonists and let them be independent and from men, and also have a strong sense of sisterhood community, which I believe in very deeply. So yeah, that I liked, and I like action movies, and yeah, the fantasy is fun.
Yeah, of course. That is awesome. I want to talk about you growing up because you already mentioned it, right? We had the privilege of watching your interview with another interview subject of ours. Her name is Professor Willoughby Harrar. You know, everyone knows her. She's amazing.
Yes.
And in that interview, you explained how you grew up in Los Angeles, right? And you grew up in this era of busing when you went to school. And then when you also went to UCI, there was this culture shift, you know, graffiti, no graffiti. It was like sirens, no sirens. And I was just really inspired by that conversation because I'm from Los Angeles as well. And I know of the similar culture shift that you speak of. And I wanted to ask, what was that like for you to change from two different environments, from one that's so drastically different to the other?
Yeah, you know, I had a lot of different emotions about it. I mean, in some ways, certainly I was homesick and feeling alienated. And it was hard for me to sleep because it was so quiet. It made me anxious. It was like, why is it so quiet? Something's gonna happen. So part of me also felt like being away from home, it was an opportunity for me to learn about other places, and that was exciting to me. I did spend a lot of time with my friends from home, and they would call Irvine vacation land because it was like, look, swimming pools.
Yeah.
And no bars on the windows. And it was like, who are these people? So I also was able to find a community of people, particularly people in the art department, because I came as an art major, who also felt alienated. And, you know, we were from different places in California, different places from around the country, and really across the world. And we all felt a little bit odd being here. So I think we were able to create a community here that it wasn't like Irvine, but it was kind of our own relationships and our own bubble that let us feel supported and welcome.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And was that along some advice that you would give to other people of color in a similar situation, going through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. When I went to high school, I went to this school that's known as the Zoo School. I went to North Hollywood High School, and it was a magnet school around zoological sciences. And I had been trained as a veterinarian since 4th grade, and I was a vet tech by the time I graduated high school. And we were all kind of, now we use the term Black weirdo, which I love that term because it makes sense to me. But yeah, we were largely people from my neighborhood and other neighborhoods who were interested in animals, who in some ways enjoyed being with animals more than people. We were each independent and unique. And I think coming to UCI, I found people who also felt unique and kind of different no matter where they were. And that's important. It's important to maintain who you are. I think I was a fully formed adult when I was 16. At that point, I really was who I am now. And of course, I've had a lot more experiences since then, but I was an adult by the time I graduated from high school and came to UCI. So it was good to be able to know who you are and to meet other people who knew who they were too and knew that they didn't really fit in with a kind of mainstream culture.
Well, yeah, no, it's super important to have that sense of community. And I think Cindy and I can relate to that in a way as well, because, the population, the ratio of like Black students to other Black students is very like small on campus. So like finding each other in like these creative spaces and like being able to like lean on each other is super, super important.
Yes.
So that if I'm a Sid.
So. Yeah, it's really nice finding someone who really thinks like you, who understands what struggles you're going through and things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. On that note, what advice would you give your younger self going through that same process of culturally assimilating?
I was always proud of the culture that I was a part of, and I was a part of multiple cultures. I mean, I was part of Black culture, absolutely. But I was also part of a kind of artistic culture. There was a music culture, music scenes that I was interested in too, so I wasn't going to assimilate and give any of that up. I will say that I had to adapt to my situation as a student.
Yeah, no.
And figure out how to navigate that. And part of that is about code switching. And I certainly figured out how to do that in college, which is really to know where you are and how to read the room.
Yeah.
And how to sort of be, which aspect of you to sort of present, in different places, knowing that we are all complicated people. I think now I'm too tired to code switch. I saw that on a t-shirt and I was like, I totally need that t-shirt. This is who I am. I'm not code switching anymore. Like, this is what you get. This is who I am. So anyway, advice to my younger self would be to have more confidence to trust who I thought I was, because I was right. And I think I've always been a pretty good reader of other people. So I would tell my younger self to trust that also.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it is.
That's good
it
to
really
have like yourself so young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you said you became an adult when you're 16. I feel like I'm still like a child. So like I hope I get to the point of adulthood very soon. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, you get older and you realize how much you already knew, but maybe, and it's, the time is different for everyone. I mean, people have different realizations at different times, and people never grow up, but I think I was right. I was right back then. I'm still right.
Awesome. Yeah, that is awesome to have that self sense of validation and
yeah.
so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like we discussed in your introduction, your interests really intersect with your passion for art, and then also your research of like Blackness and Black culture. We wanted to ask you, what got you interested in that intersection, and how did you figure out that those intersect for you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and there's an easy answer. I mean, I'd been trained to be a veterinarian, and I was a vet tech, and then it was time to go to college. So, you know, there's one college, one university in each state where you can get your doctorate of veterinary medicine. So for California, it's UC Davis. And I wanted to stop competing with my colleagues as a student. You know, we were all going to be competing to get our DVMs and work in California. And I felt that I had been a little programmed, you know, and I went to an oceanography elementary school. You know, like starting early on, I was trained to work with animals. And when I was 16, I decided, what if I try something else? Like, I wonder if there's something else that maybe I'm interested in. So I came to UCI as an art major. I bought the biggest canvas I could afford and realized I didn't really know anything about the history of painting. So I started taking art history classes. I got totally seduced by all of the stories of like Vincent van Gogh cutting off his ear and giving it to a prostitute. I was like, who are these people? Like, what? How did that even happen? And how did he become a successful artist instead of, you know, a homeless person, which he kind of was both. But anyway, I loved it. And I loved my professor, Ana Gunosova, who retired from UCI. And then I, you know, quickly realized that there weren't any African-American artists being taught in my classes. And we had some visiting faculty that in my senior years showed me some African-American feminist filmmakers. I was really interested in that. And I was working with Pat Ward-Williams, who's a great artist at UCI. I had also had some communication with Ed Burrell, who's another great artist who was at UCI. And I just felt like there's a space in the field for my contribution if I can do something about African-American artists. The great artist Daniel J. Martinez, who's still at UCI, told me that the field needed me. They needed writers, they needed critics of color. And that just saying that had a big impact on me. You know, it was kind of a vote of confidence that there would be space for me and that he thought I could do the work. So it was that group of experiences that really made me want to go to graduate school. I didn't know what graduate school was in a very basic way. So I knew that when I applied to colleges, there was UCLA, UC Riverside, you know, Yale, what have you. I thought graduate schools were like a totally different set of universities I'd never heard of. I didn't understand that graduate schools were part of universities. So I was like not connected to any kind of pipeline, you know, that would help me figure it out. And I was able to talk to some staff actually at UCI that were like, no, let me help you figure it out. And so that was a big transition too, just figuring out I'm going to be a graduate student and where do I do that? And so I went to University of Rochester. They had a new program called Visual and Cultural Studies where they were very open to sort of non-traditional art histories. And so I was excited about going there and being part of creating a new art history focused on African-American artists.
Nice, beautiful. How would you describe your art? Just like in a couple of words.
My art?
Yeah.
Like as an artist?
Yes.
Is that your art behind you?
Yes. Is that your art behind you?
No. Oh my gosh. You are so sweet. This is, it's a kind of mashup or mix up or remix, I guess, of a painting by Jeff Donaldson called Wives of Shango. I'll show you what the actual painting looks like. This is the original painting.
Oh, you have it. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this painting was shown in an exhibition called Soul of a Nation that focused on Black artists in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. And it opened at the Tate, but then it came to the Broad Museum in downtown LA. And Professor Frank Boulderson and I were commissioned to create this day-long symposium around the show. And so, so we were involved in the presentation of the show as a whole. And these were street banners that were on, hanging from the light posts in LA. So you can see I kind of remix them so it looks like they're kissing or talking or there's some kind of sisterhood going on, which to me was really powerful instead of having them facing opposite directions. But not my art. My art, I can't say that I'm an artist. I do make art, but artists work full time on their craft. But I do enjoy painting and photography.
Yeah, well, if you remix that, that's art. That looks really good. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I can curate, right? I could mix things up and arrange things. I can claim that as a curator, but yeah.
In that sense, who in your life do you most look at when you're kind of drawing inspiration for these curating projects that you've taken on, and why do you draw inspiration from them?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many incredible women who are fantastic curators and scholars. So I'll name two, but we could do a whole hour on them.
Right.
So my main mentor in the field is Deborah Willis, and she's head of photography and imaging at NYU in the Tisch School. She is the reason I'm in the game. When I went to graduate school and I went to the art library to get all the books on Black artists, they were all written by her. And she gave me a job working with her at the Smithsonian for a place then called the National African American Museum Project. And that became the National African American Museum of History and Culture. But we worked together to present that first show with a team of other people at the Smithsonian to try to prove to the nation that there was enough public interest to really establish a museum dedicated to African American people. So she has curated, I mean, I really want to say countless shows. I couldn't even name all of them off the bat. And she's a scholar, she's a professor. I mean, she's incredible. The other person I'll mention is Dr. Kelly Jones. She's at Columbia University. She is such an inspiration also. And I think that Deborah Willis and Kelly Jones would name each other as inspirations. She's written several books. She's a professor, she's a scholar, she's a curator. And she's written several books, but one in particular I'll mention, which is about Black artists and the LA art scene in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, called South of Pico, which is where most Black people in LA live, right? Yeah. So you're south of Pico or north of Wilshire, and that's one way that we understand people's class in LA. And it's a fantastic book that's won numerous awards. She is a dogged researcher. She brings people out to the world by doing the primary research. And I'm so inspired by the relationships she can cultivate with artists and then with museums to present the work in a way that it really should be seen.
Yeah.
So I will name them.
Yeah, that's such important work too, because I mean, I haven't really delved too deep into the art history world. I took one art history class, but the only Black
Well,
artist
take my classes.
I want to.
I'm right here. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, I'll try to. I really will
Yeah,
try.
please. Yeah.
I'll be a super senior for you. I will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll try to. But yeah, I took one art history class back when I was in community college, and the only Black artist we learned about was Basquiat, and like that was
Yeah.
cool. But like I think it's so important that you and then your other inspirations and friends like put together these like shows to show people like there is a place for all of these Black artists, and it's important to see them and their work.
Yeah, and a necessity really, right? Because when you go to museums and you're seeing all this beautiful art, it's kind of like,
yeah,
where am I at? Where's my history too?
Yeah.
Like, so amazing, love it. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so our next question is, it's kind of off topic, but on the same topic. But do you agree with the phrase that art starts at imitation and ends in innovation? And then if so, who do you take inspiration from? And how does their work manifest within your own work?
Yeah, I like that quotation. I think that makes sense to me. I don't know if all artists would agree that that's their process, but I think that actually it absolutely, there's a logic to it. I think in terms of the history of training in art school, you are trained, historically in America, you were trained to copy and to get a sense of the different styles and brushstrokes, let's say for painting, to sort of master that. And then you're left to figure out what do you do now? As a scholar, you also are trained in different methodologies, and you read important theorists and kind of mimic their approach and criticize it. But then for your dissertation, you have to create something new. So I would say people that have inspired me in terms of imitation and then innovation, or artists that inspire me, I guess I will name, there's two artists. Clifford Still is my favorite painter. And he was a great abstract expressionist, and his paintings to me are emotional landscapes. He was incredibly gifted with the use of color and movement in his work. There's something about his work that I, as an individual, just respond to. I feel like they're overwhelming, and there's something really powerful about them. I'd say my next favorite painter is Mary Corse. She's someone who is, active, living in Los Angeles, and her paintings move. They are engaging. Your body activates them. They are reflective, inspired in terms of technique by the light of car headlights on the white dividing lines on the freeway. And so she was able to use those reflective beads and create these really incredible compositions that illuminate.
Wow.
And so there's something about Mary Corse's work that I physically respond to. The other artist who really inspires me is Titus Kaphar, who's a very famous artist, a young artist who's working. And he's very good at the remix. He's very good at allowing viewers to look at a historical past, particularly of the US, and a Black future, to help us understand things about the past that maybe weren't taught in schools. And I am really inspired by the ways that he is able to, using different strategies, sort of get to the heart of the matter and some of the contradictions and complexities of race in America.
Did that all all those interests and all that inspiration that you had, did that all culminate with your book project? Is that something that inspired you within that process?
Well, that book was inspired by research, looking into the archives of different museums and meeting with artists and talking to them, and Black curators and scholars. I, like Titus, am very interested in art history and institutional history. Titus made this really gorgeous painting and named it after my book. So I think he's been inspired by, by my writing also. And writing that book, for me, it was important to make a contribution to make it very accessible for people to know the history of African American people and American art museums. So I knew that through my research and writing, I could at least offer that as a basis for people to then think about what is our current relationship as Black people to museums and ideas of beauty and aesthetics. So, and then since then, I think the artists that I've mentioned, all three of them, have been just very influential in my own sense of joy and critical thinking. I think all three of them in different ways have contributed to that, even beyond the book.
How long did that take? What did the first steps look like to begin this process for this project? Was it something that was long planned? Did you have like a specific moment where you were like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do? Probably not. Nobody does that. But like, what was that like?
Yeah. Well, the first book, it did take a very long time. I'm a very slow writer. And it was based loosely on my dissertation. So, that you write while you're in graduate school. And then after that, I really had to reconceptualize the dissertation for a book. And that meant I needed to write most of it new. So I would say, honestly, after the dissertation, it probably took me, like 4 years to write that. Yeah, it took a long time. And that's because I worked full time. So I wasn't at home working on it every day or in a library working on it every day. I had a job. My first career was working in museums. Being a professor is my second career. So I've always done multiple things. So I've never been a full-time writer.
We also wanted to talk about your latest exhibit with UCI, UCI Black Alumna Chapter, the Black Index Art Exhibition.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah, we just wanted to know, like, how did that get started? How did that collaboration start? Yeah, we're just super curious.
Yeah, no, I'm delighted to talk about the show. The Black Alumni Chapter has been very supportive and excited for the exhibition to come to campus. It will also travel to New York and make multiple stops along the way. So the Ford Foundation has financially really made it possible for me to do this show. I've also gotten funding from across campus, the UCI Confronting Extremism program, different Humanities Center, Illuminations. It's been very helpful. The Black Index started as a personal political idea. It came from my difficulty in processing the normality of Black death. It came with the experience of seeing so many Black people murdered, so many with such regularity that I was no longer to remember their names or the circumstances of their death. And that was very troubling and depressing to me.
Right.
So that's the core of it. And then when I was looking at art, and I regularly go to museums and galleries, I was finding that there were other people artists through their artwork that seem to also be struggling with the normality of Black death, and a sense that there is no justice when someone is murdered. Even if the person is caught and prosecuted, there's still no justice. You know, you're still left with that loss. So the short of it, and it can be much longer, but the short of it is the Black Index has 6 artists in the exhibition who are all dealing with these themes of loss and memory, and concerning African American people. And so the show is, for me, a very validating, community building presentation, in which you can see how artists are trying to process this death, address Black suffering, and also help the rest of us who are dealing with those issues feel like we're not alone, that we're all in it, and that there's so much beauty and resilience in Blackness that needs to be recognized and seen. So that's what the show is really about.
Wow, like I'm getting like goosebumps. You obviously can't. I'm literally getting goosebumps because it's so powerful, right? Especially in today's climate. I know you were talking about this project and your book like a while ago, probably, and you had to curate it and get all these things together. So it's just so prevalent, especially right now. So
yeah, and that's thank you for saying that. Part of the problem is that this show will always be relevant, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that is part of the significance of the project. So there'll be an exhibition, and then there'll also be a publication.
Yeah, but having those conversations and like acknowledging that significance is one of the first steps we can take towards, you know, hopefully making some sort of steps towards a positive direction.
Right, especially through art, right? I think that is just so beautiful and so unique.
Art is healing.
Art is healing for sure.
Yeah.
Because you've had such an amazing journey, right? You had your BA from UCI, and then you got your doctorate. You're just an amazing person, right? I think anybody would be lucky to talk to you and look at your work and examine the steps that you've taken. So I wanted to ask, what is some advice that you give to other Black artists looking to create a book, maybe looking to curate, or just involve themselves in this community?
Do it and talk to me.
Yeah. 2 steps.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I can help. And I can say that because I've had great mentors. So I think that, you know, it's not like the path is wide open and you can just walk down the path and it's already all set for you. It's not. But there are people who have done it. The work is very important, and it can happen. It's, you know, that's the thing. Like, I think one of the things I love about being Black is, to me, Blackness is everything. You know, we can't be reduced. We are who we are, and we're so many things that, you know, you are making Black art. You are a Black artist. You know, for some people, when they say that, they're trying to narrow you down. For me, those terms, I understand how they've been used against us in terms of repressing the fullness and diversity of who we are. To me, when people use those terms, I'm aware of that restriction, but I'm also aware that that means unlimited, you know? So, so many future curators and artists, you know, Black curators and artists will be what my parents call, and I call now, of course, a Negro first. You know, like, we're still in a situation where there's been barriers in every direction, and there's still so many opportunities that we have to make for ourselves. So yeah, advice, do it. Talk to me. I won't tell you, you know, don't be scared. Be scared and do it anyway. You know, don't let that get in your way. Trust your vision. And also, I feel like I have to say this because we're living in such an unkind world. Like, also be kind to people, you know, to artists, to yourself, to people who are not there yet, you know, with your vision, and just make it happen.
Yeah, it's really important. Yeah, that is good advice.
Yeah.
And then to conclude, we wanted to ask a little bit about your role as an associate professor at UCI. What are some of the most pertinent goals you've accomplished, in your opinion? And are there still milestones that you'd like to achieve as a mentor for students?
I have had many, many students. I've been here for 13 years. I've had, you know, thousands of undergraduates and you know, less graduate students, but I've still had a lot of graduate students. I usually have more than many of my colleagues in art history. So mentoring is really important. I think if you want a good mentor, you should be a good mentee. Keep on top of your schedule. Time management is a struggle for everyone, but really pay attention to it. You know, do your best to respect your time and other people's time. I think I've written over 40 articles in my career. I'm really proud of the exhibition catalog essays that I've written. And I'm proud of, I'm proud that people ask me to write for different projects that they're doing. That's always an honor. When students approach you and say, we want to interview you, that's an honor. I mean, those are things that I feel are accomplishments, because I've never met either of you before.
Yeah.
You know, but you reached out to me, and that's meaningful to me. The curating has been really important. The Grafton Tyler Brown show I did of the only Black artists working in the West in the 19th century. And then the Ernie Barnes show that I did last year at CAM, the California African American Museum. I'm really proud of that show. I'm finishing a book now called Norman Rockwell, The Civil Rights Paintings, and I'm really excited about that work. It's really a criticism of the limits of white liberalism in the arts. And it's a really wonderful opportunity to think closely and deeply about these really incredible paintings that Norman Rockwell made in the 1960s that show how he was trying to deal with the civil rights movement and a sense of what he could do to try to make the world a safer place. And all of that's really fascinating to me. So I will be proud of that when that's finished.
It's good to read that. That's awesome.
I'm so excited about everything that you just said. And thank you for being here today. And thank you for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule. I know you are. Yeah, this is an awesome conversation.
Yeah, so
great. I feel the same way. Thanks so much for reaching out.
Thank you guys for joining us for that episode of The Welcome Table. This has been Sydney
and Tatum.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.